They say there are ancient rituals forgotten by time, forbidden ceremonies, banned even by the darkest cults. One of them, known only as the Ritual of the Lost Souls, was never meant to be performed, but human curiosity always finds a way to awaken what should remain buried. In the heart of a forgotten village, surrounded by Velmont Forest, there is a clearing no one dares to enter after sunset. The oldest villagers speak of an ancient cult that gathered there to summon the spirits of those who died in agony, souls that never found peace. They say that if someone follows the instructions in the Book of Echoes, they can reopen the portal between the living and the damned. But the price is your own soul. In 2023, for university students, Lucas, Amanda, Bruno, and Jessica set out to document urban legends for their paranormal YouTube channel. In an abandoned library near Velmont, they found the cursed book. Lucas, holding the handheld camera, says, "Check this out. There's a ritual here called the Ritual of the Lost Souls." "Sounds like a horror movie," Amanda replies. "Let's do it. All it needs is a circle of candles, blood, and an offering." The footage is dark and shaky. We see them placing candles around a pentagram drawn on the floor, and they take turns reading from the grimoire. They travel to the village elder to find out more about the history of the place. He told them the story of the valley, how it used to be a quiet community until one day they found a mysterious book in the forest. At first, they thought it was just some old volume left behind by scholars who studied the region. But soon they realized it wasn't any ordinary book. Its leather cover had strange symbols that seemed to shift and writhe when you looked closely. And its pages were filled with incantations written in a language that seemed both ancient and alien. Fear turned to fascination and then to obsession as the villagers became convinced the book held the key to unimaginable power. Every night, a group would meet in secret, performing rituals that drew on the energy of the earth and the spirits of the dead. Their chants echoed through the valley, disturbing the slumber of the ancient ones who lay just beneath the surface. But the villagers didn't care. They wanted power. They wanted knowledge. They wanted to become more than they were. So the rituals continued, growing in intensity and darkness until the very fabric of the valley was rent asunder and the creatures from beyond slithered forth into the world of the living. Then, just as quickly as it had begun, it stopped. The book was hidden away, and the villagers pretended as if nothing had happened. But the valley was changed forever. For the door to the other side had been opened, and there was no going back. Then the forest swallowed them whole. Now, years later, the remaining villagers tell stories of those who dared to venture too close and never returned. The whispers carried on the wind that speak of pain and madness, and of the rituals that still go on in the clearing, drawing the lost souls closer and closer to our world. The group laughed nervously as they prepared the ritual. The forest was alive with noise. The wind rustled through the trees, branches creaking like old bones. Far off in the distance, something howled. But they pushed on, determined to complete the ritual despite their fear. As the last candle was lit, a sudden gust of wind blew through the clearing, extinguishing the flames and plunging them into darkness. A chill wind swept through the clearing, carrying with it the scent of decay and death. The hairs on the back of their necks stood on end, and they could feel the eyes of the dead upon them, judging, condemning. But they continued with the ritual, their voices echoing strangely in the darkness. The ground began to shake, and the air grew thick and heavy. And then from the darkness came a sound, a whisper that sent shivers down their spines. The voice spoke their names, each syllable dripping with malice and intent. Lucas stumbled back, knocking over a candle and sending a pool of wax spilling across the ground. The flame caught fire, spreading rapidly and bathing the clearing in an eerie red light. Panic surged through him, and he tried to extinguish it, but his hands were clumsy and useless against the spreading flames. Jessica screamed, her voice echoing through the trees, and fell to her knees, burying her face in her hands. She cried out again, this time in terror, as a cold hand clamped over her mouth and dragged her toward the darkness. She struggled, kicking and scratching, but it was no use. The grip was too strong, and the darkness too alluring. With a final desperate sob, she vanished from sight. Amanda gasped and tried to pull away, but it was too late. The grip tightened, and she was pulled toward the darkness, screaming for help as she went. The fire roared and crackled, casting grotesque shadows that danced around the clearing. Bruno and Lucas huddled together, their eyes wide with terror as they watched the flames consume the pentagram. Suddenly, the fire flared, throwing their faces into sharp relief. The air grew heavy, and the temperature dropped as if the very essence of the forest was pressing in on them. A low growl rumbled through the trees, sending shivers down their spines. Something was out there, watching them, waiting for them to make a move. Terror-stricken, they broke into a run, stumbling through the underbrush as they fled. But the forest seemed to have a will of its own, twisting and turning, leading them deeper and deeper into its shadowy embrace. They ran until their lungs burned and their legs screamed for mercy, but there was no escape. The forest was closing in on them, its grasp tightening until there was no hope of escape. Then everything went black. They awoke to find themselves lying on the forest floor, their bodies aching and their minds reeling from the events of the previous night. As they slowly came to their senses, they realized that they were not alone. Lurking in the shadows were the creatures of the forest, their eyes gleaming with malice and their fangs dripping with saliva. The creatures snarled and snapped, their claws extended and ready to strike. Trapped and helpless, Lucas and Bruno could only watch in horror as the beasts closed in on them. Their screams echoed through the silent woods, a testament to their terror and despair. But their cries for help were lost in the thick canopy above. No one was coming to rescue them. They were on their own. And then everything went black again. When the sun finally penetrated the thick canopy, it revealed a scene of carnage. The clearing was littered with the bodies of the unlucky villagers, their flesh torn and mangled, their eyes wide with terror. And in the center of it all, a single pentagram lay scorched and defaced, a grim reminder of the horror that had unfolded. Now, years later, the remaining villagers tell stories of those who dared to venture too close and never returned. Of whispers carried on the wind that speak of pain and madness, and of the rituals that still go on in the clearing, drawing the lost souls closer and closer to our world. One day, a young man named Lucas decided to investigate. Armed with nothing but his curiosity and a camera, he entered the forbidden forest, determined to uncover the truth behind the legend. What he found would change his life forever. Deep in the woods, Lucas stumbled upon a clearing, and there in the center was a pentagram drawn in blood. As he approached, he could feel a dark presence enveloping him, sending shivers down his spine. Suddenly, he heard voices whispering his name, beckoning him closer. Unable to resist their call, he stepped into the pentagram, and everything went black. When he awoke, he found himself in a desolate wasteland, the sky above filled with swirling clouds of ash and decay. Twisted figures clad in tattered robes stumbled around him, their eyes vacant and soulless. They reached out to him, their touch icy and lifeless, and beckoned him to follow. Lucas felt an overwhelming urge to join them, to embrace the nothingness that beckoned from the horizon. But a part of him, a tiny ember of his former self, resisted. With a Herculean effort, he tore himself away from the whispers and stumbled back to the forest edge. As he emerged from the trees, he saw that the world had changed. The sun hung low in the sky, casting long, distorted shadows. The forest behind him seemed to writhe and pulse, as if alive. Shaking, he fled, stumbling through the underbrush, branches whipping at his face, thorns tearing at his clothes. The whispers followed, taunting him, urging him to return. But he pushed on, desperate to escape the clutches of the wasteland. Days turned to weeks, weeks to months. Lucas wandered the countryside, haunted by the whispers, fearing the touch of another human soul. Then one day, exhausted and emaciated, he collapsed at the feet of a kindly farmer who took him in and nursed him back to health. Slowly, bit by bit, Lucas regained his strength, but the whispers never faded. They lingered at the edge of his hearing, a constant reminder of his brush with oblivion. Determined to silence them, Lucas returned to the forest, hoping to destroy the source of the whispers once and for all. But when he reached the clearing, he found only a pentagram carved in the dirt. The wind sighing through the trees, carrying with it the scent of decay and death. And as he stood there, the whispers began anew, louder and more insistent than before, promising him power beyond his wildest dreams, if he would only embrace the darkness within. Lucas stumbled back, his mind reeling. The whispers promised him power, but at what cost? Is he willing to surrender his soul to the void? As he stood there, torn between the light and the darkness, the fate of the world hung in the balance. Would Lucas embrace the whispers and unleash the void upon the world? Or would he resist and save humanity from eternal damnation? Do you think Lucas will embrace the whispers and unleash the void upon the world? Or will he resist and save humanity from eternal damnation? Let us know in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe for more terrifying tales. Would you complete the ritual of the lost souls?